is Yahweh. And the name of the Messiah is Yahshua, with the soft vav, Yahushua or Yahshua. And in Greek, it was Ioda. And, Iasua, as you can see, Iasua. And then it came about into English as Jesus, which is really quite a step away from the original name. So that is getting in a little bit more detail, but this is why it is so important that God said, I have brought you out of the bondage of Egypt with a mighty hand so that the entire world may know that my name is Yahweh. That's why God brought Israel out of the land of Egypt, showing his mighty power and destroying Pharaoh's charioteers and army in the Red Sea, so that the whole world would know that his name is Yahweh. And then he gave the commandment, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh thy God in vain. And so a tradition developed that the name was too holy to be spoken. But just as the prophet spoke before the Babylonian captivity, you have not taught my name to my people, you Kohanim, you priest. You haven't taught my name to my people, but you have taught them to call on Baal. In Hebrew, Baal simply means the Lord. It's an indistinct title. This is what Sarah called her husband, Abraham, called him Baal. She called him Lord. It's just an indistinct title. And that's what the priests were teaching them, to call on the Lord rather than to call on the name of Yahweh. And then God said, if you still refuse to teach my name Yahweh, when you return from captivity, I will destroy your nation. And that is why Israel was destroyed as a nation in 70 AD, because they still refused to do it. Because, remember, the Messiah said, you will not see me again until you say, Baruch haba b'shem Yahweh. Blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. He quoted it correctly. He used the name. And of course, the religious tradition, they stood against him because he was speaking the holy name. But he said, you won't see me again until you say that. Baruch haba b'shem Yahweh. And so, since he said we won't see him until then, I suggest that we never take it in vain, but we say, blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahweh. Just as he said, I have not come in my own name. I have come in my Father's name, in the name of Yahweh, and you have not received me. If you don't receive me, there's another one coming in his own name. Him you will receive. And so it is that warning that we listen to and we adhere to. And understanding that, as in Zechariah it says, in the day of affliction, it says that 10 Gentiles will take a hold of the skirt of the Jew and say, let us go with you. We know that God is with you. What is this skirt of the Jew? It is the kanaf. It is the tzitzit on the corner of the garment. That is what God told us at Mount Sinai that we are to put on the corner of our garment. It is a fringe upon which there is to be a single thread of blue, of techelet. And this techelet blue is the very color of the floor of the throne room of God. It is that sapphire blue sea on which the 70 elders went up in the mountain and they ate a supper before Yahweh in the holy place up on the Mount Sinai. And he said to put this on the corner of our garments to always remember to keep his commandments. This is why we put it there. How does it remind us? Because it reminds us that we are always in his presence, even though we don't see him. And God says to put this on the corner of our garments to remember to keep his commandments, and that he would put us in the middle of the trade routes of all the world, and that as the people came through our country, they would ask, what is this? They would ask why we wear this. And we are always to be ready to give an answer to every man that asks a reason of the hope that's in us with fear and trembling. And it says in the last days, when the Gentiles cry out in repentance, they'll come up to the Israelite and grab a hold of the tzitzit and say, teach us, teach us. We know that the living oracles of God were committed to you. Teach us. We know that God is with you. We know that the living oracles of God are the shadow pictures of good things to come. As the prophet Malachi spoke, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings. Again, the word wings is the word kanaf, which are the tzitzit on the corner of the garment. And just as the Son of Righteousness, the rabbis understood that the Son of Righteousness was speaking of the Messiah. And the rabbis taught that just as the sun was created on the fourth day, so the Messiah will come on the fourth day, or in the fourth millennium. And, in fact, it was Tishri 15 of 3999, with less than 18 months left of the fourth millennium, that is the date on which Yeshua of Nazareth was born, in the very millennium which he was expected to arrive. Now, it was at the very end of that millennium, which shows us something very important, that God is not only omniscient, but God is very slow. And he waits right until the end before the deliverer comes and before deliverance comes. And we see that so many times in our own lives. But just as the rabbis had taught that the Son of Righteousness will come on the fourth day, the Messiah will come on the fourth day, and that the Messiah will arise with healing in his tzitzit, in the corner of his garment, we see that the Gospels now give us the picture of when this actually takes place as far as how that particular prophecy was fulfilled. In fact, there was a time in which Jairus, his daughter, was ill. Jairus lived in one of the small villages, and he had called for Yeshua to come and to pray and minister and heal his daughter. Now, outside of that village, a woman was living who was actually once a resident of that town, but now she was living outside of the village because she had an issue of blood for which she could not get healed. Now, according to God's Torah, if a person keeps the commandments of God, as he says, if you keep my commandments, none of the diseases of the Gentiles will come upon you. But if through someone's disobedience, their contamination with dead bodies or whatever reason, they contract one of the diseases of the Gentiles, then they are to live outside of the household of faith until they are cleansed, until they're healed, because God did not want all of his people contaminated. And because of the disobedience of one person, he did not want all of the household of faith diseased, sick, and dying. And so God set up laws of quarantine that if you keep these laws of quarantine, then that isolates the disease from the household of faith. Now, this woman who had this issue of blood, it was there for 12 years. It says that she sold everything that she owned. The house, the chariot, everything was gone. And she spent it all on physicians. For 12 years, she had this disease and could not get healed. She had to live outside of town. And her friends and family would, every day, would bring food out to her. They'd take it outside of town, and they would put the basket out by a rock, and they would put the food down on that rock, and then she would come out after they left, and then she would get the food and stay away from them. And so for 12 years, she's away from her friends. She's away from her family. And she is desperate. She's heartbroken. She's getting to be an old woman now, and she has no hope of ever getting healed. But she has heard, because her friends and her family come out, and they talk about this rabbi that has been teaching around the different synagogues in the area, and that he is going to come into town because everyone has heard how ill Jairus' daughter is. And so when this rabbi is coming into town, Yeshua is coming in, then there is a whole group of people following him that had come from the previous town in which he was teaching the synagogue. And as he's coming into town, then the entire city then flocks out to the gates of the city and makes a pathway for him. And all the people are there. There is a throng at the gate of the city, and they are so excited that he's coming, because this they have heard, that as he teaches in the synagogue, is that people are getting healed, that he's interpreting the Torah, and there's a fame that goes out about him among all the people around. And so these people are so excited about hearing